In a fresh effort to stabilize the nation's volatile exchange rate, the Central Bank of Nigeria has directed deposit money banks to sell their excess dollar stocks by February 1, 2024. The CBN disclosed this in a new circular released on Wednesday, emphasizing that lenders should refrain from holding excess foreign currencies for profit. Officials at the central bank expressed concern that some commercial banks are maintaining long-term foreign exchange positions to capitalize on the volatile movements of exchange rates. The newly issued circular introduces a set of guidelines aimed at mitigating the risks associated with such practices. Titled Harmonization of Reporting Requirements on Foreign Currency Exposures of Banks, the circular highlights the CBN's unease over the growing trend of banks holding substantial foreign currency positions. This development follows closely on the heels of a warning issued by the CBN just 48 hours prior, cautioning banks and FX dealers against reporting false exchange rates and other related malpractices. And on to the Federal Capital Territory and on security matters. Bandits have conducted an audacious attack in Pambara Extension, located in the Bwari Area Council of Abuja, abducting a director in the Federal Housing Authority. The incident occurred around 12:30 a.m. and the assailants, who fired indiscriminately, created panic in the area before escaping through the bushes with the abducted director. Residents, including military personnel, both serving or retired, and civilians, confirmed the attack. The targeted area, Pambara Extension, is approximately 200 meters from a military base commonly known as camp. The military personnel stationed at the base were unable to prevent the bandits from carrying out the abduction. In a similar development, bandits in Kuduru are demanding a 290 million naira ransom and essential supplies, including food items, drugs, bed sheets, and cardigans, to release 7 hostages, including a pregnant woman and 3 children. The community leader, seeking anonymity, urgently appeals to the Inspector General of Police and the Chief of Army Staff for swift intervention as the hostages face deteriorating conditions after over a month in captivity. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission said it has uncovered religious organizations laundering money for terrorists in the country. The commission also said it secured a total of 747 convictions out of over 2,000 petitions accepted within the last 100 days. The chairman of the commission, Ola Olukoyede, stated this at the launch of the Interfaith Manuals aimed at enhancing the fight against corruption in Nigeria. Trustee Yusuf Akogu has details of this report.
These eminent Nigerians, religious leaders and young people are gathered here to drum support for the EFCC and the fight against corruption in the country. Speaking at this one-day dialogue on anti-corruption, the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commissions, Ola Olukoyede, who appreciates the support of Nigerians, said the fight against corruption requires all hands to be on deck. The EFCC's boss revelation that some religious bodies are providing protection for terrorists has put question mark on some religious sects in the country.
That's a matter we are handling. A pyramid scheme of that involved over 30 billion naira fleeced from Nigeria. Along the line, some people died, some victims, collapsed and all of that. We were able to trace about over 7 billion to a particular religious body. And so what did I do? I said, look, write a letter to the leader of that religious sect. We did. And the next thing we saw was a restraining order. The money traced to that religious organization to their leaders. We got a restraining order stopping us from inviting them, stopping us from recovering the money.
Traditional and religious leaders here are calling on young people to be agents of change in the society while adhering to the virtue of honesty.
Let us demonstrate very clearly always by our way of life that honesty is possible and rewarding. Moral education, therefore, is key to empowering the youth with the right, timeless value to make ethical decisions and hold themselves and others accountable for their actions. As religious leaders, we'll invite you for a closed-door interactive session on what we should do as religious leaders at the direct level when we do meet, so that all the Christian and Islamic leaders will be there to really talk with you, discuss with you in a constructive manner, so that you will really tell us the truth about so many of these things that we hear or we read in social media and what you think we could do. And then we can now go back to our churches and mosques and other places to really fight this corruption.
We are the problems of this country. We are the problems of actually the mirror that we are showing the youth, because they do believe that nobody is there for them. Nobody is standing for them. So why can't they go into so many immoral acts, Yahoo, and all what have you, a lot of cybercrime, because there is a clear disconnect between the leaders and the led.
The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who was represented by the Vice President Kashim Shettima, said young people, traditional institutions and religious leaders must join government and other relevant agencies to ensure that corruption is reduced to the barest minimum.
The government is aware that our ambitious goal of eradicating internet offenses and corruption demands an atmosphere steeped in trust and integrity. We must foster open communication channels and ensure that law enforcement actions align with justice and accountability. We must always remind our young people that abundant opportunities for local enterprises exist within and beyond our shores.
There is a unanimous agreement among stakeholders here that for Nigeria to move forward and compete globally, the fight against corruption must be fought and won collectively. Yusuf Akogu, Trust Television News, Abuja.
We move on now to Imo State, where many are feared to have lost their lives in a tragic incident in Imo State, where a tanker suspected to be used by oil bunkers exploded in the forest of Obiti or Haji Gemba local government area of the state. The incident, which occurred at Ndorama pipeline within the Obiti rubber estate, resulted in many people being burned beyond recognition. According to an eyewitness, in a viral social media video, vandals attempted to vandalize the pipeline's right-of-way. The suspects driving a tanker believed to be involved in illegal bunkering dug deep into the ground, located the pipeline, and tapped and emptied oil into the parked tanker inside the bush. Confirming the incident, Imo State Police Public Relations Officer Henry Okoye announced that the command had initiated an investigation to uncover the immediate cause of the incident and apprehend those involved. The Oyo State Governor, Seyi Makinde, has signed into law Executive Order 1, 2024, addressing the handling and storage of harmful substances in the state. One notable provision in the order stipulates a 72-hour ultimatum for individuals in possession of explosives within the state to declare them. The enactment of this law comes approximately 2 weeks after an explosion occurred in the state capital, Ibadan, on January 16, resulting in 5 fatalities, 77 injuries, and the destruction of 58 houses in the Adei area of Old Bodija, Ibadan. Preliminary investigations had linked the explosion to illegally stored explosives in a residential area by some miners. At a brief signing ceremony held at the governor's office in Agodi, Ibadan, Makinde emphasized the necessity of the executive order in light of the January 16 incident. The law focuses on the safe handling and storage of harmful substances in the state. Governor Makinde, following the signing, visited the blast site. After 5 years of signing 30,000 naira as a minimum wage for Nigerian workers, civil servants are happy that the government is considering an increment in the minimum wage. Most public and private sector workers believe that the increment would ease the current hardship they're experiencing in the face of threats by employers to cut down their staff strength in order to sustain their businesses. Hassan Lawan Koli has details of this report.
Public servants across the country have welcomed the news of the constitution of a committee to review the minimum wage in the country. Al-Amin Halilu, a local government worker, says the current minimum wage of 30,000 naira is not enough to cater himself alone, let alone his family.
Ni a tunanina wannan lokaci ya kamata a ce an aiwatar da wannan abu kuma kare.
I am happy that the government want to review the minimum wage. We are in critical economic condition, and to serve our current needs, the minimum wage must be at least 150,000 naira because our current salary cannot even sustain us for a week.
Yau an waye gari ma'aikaci ba iya saladinsa ba iya rike shi koda na tsawon mako guda ne.
Although Abdul Mumin Abubakar, another worker, is eagerly awaiting a salary increase, he is however worried that the development could trigger an increase in commodities, especially for food issue
of minimum wage is a very critical issue in this country because we have seen the way things are increasing in the market, especially when it's come to food. If you want to buy something in the market, you go to market, you want to buy something today 5,000, tomorrow it's going to be 6,000. So I want to use this medium to appeal to the committee to look into the issue of the way things are increasing. The federal government should establish a committee for monitoring, the way people are selling their goods. If you can just wake up in the morning, you just decided to sell your things without making, what is going on in the country, it will not going to help the citizens in the country.
Some business owners in Gombe view the planned minimum wage increment as a welcome development on the one hand, but have reservations that it will also have a negative impact on their businesses and their employees.
We must follow the instruction from the government because we are all under government. We will add money like every government say. So the payment we will make to our staff, it will affect us because we are suffering. What I need in these positions, we need government interventions. There is most government intervention for private organizations like us because if we say we will continue fair salary at minimum wage, we are running at loss. So it's two things will be happen. Whether we close the business and go for other one, or we reduce our staff. So if we reduce our staff at this level, so there are many unemployment available in the country. So what do you think? That's why I say we must need a government intervention at this level.
According to World Bank, Nigeria's poverty rate rose from 50% in 2018 to 46% in 2023, with many people living below the poverty line due to the sluggish economic growth and rising inflation. Hassan Lawan Koli, Trust TV News, Gombe.
Let's circle back now to Imo State, where a tanker explosion rocked Ohaji Egbema local government area, and will now be joining Trust TV's Ajibade Praise for further insights and updates on this incident. Welcome to the news update, Ajibade. Ajibade Praise, can you hear me? Okay. We do hope to reconnect with Ajibade as soon as he can hear us. Moving on to more stories. Leaders of political parties in Kaduna State have charged the Independent National Electoral Commission to conduct a free, fair and acceptable rerun elections in Kaduna State. They gave the charge at the INEC headquarters in Kaduna during the distribution of sensitive materials to the affected local government where rerun election will hold. The report.
The distribution of the sensitive materials was conducted in the presence of representatives of the political parties, security personnel, and other stakeholders.
As we can see on ground now, things are going very well. But we don't know tomorrow, but today, things are very, very well.
Well, there are not any problem. Me and my colleagues for other party, we are satisfied all their preparation. Also that we go through all the material and also we satisfy with the material.
You know, as usual, you will see elaborate arrangements, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the election matter, where it matters, you'll be disappointed. Like that of Kachiaka Garko, we are highly disappointed because there was no logo party of Labour Party. There was no logo. That was why the election is cancelled and we are going for a rerun.
Considering the security challenges bedeviling the state, they are appealing to the electorate to maintain peace during the election.
INEC should try and be free and conduct free and fair election so that everybody will be satisfied. If there is free and fair election, there will be no litigation. We hope this time around there will be no litigation, but if again we feel cheated, we'll go back to court again and maybe they'll order for a re-election again.
Expecting a free, fair election, free violence, so that people will conduct their election in peaceful way.
The rerun election will take place in several local government areas in Kaduna State, namely Chikun, Igabi, Kaduna South, Kajuru, Kachia, Kagarko, and Kudal local government. Bella Musa, Trust TV News.
You're watching the news update on Trust TV. Coming up in part 2. Small-scale women farmers ask for investment and implementation in gender mainstreaming agri sector. Details of this story and more to come after the break. We'll be right back. Welcome back and thank you so much for staying. But if you're just joining us, this is the news update on Trust TV. Here is a look at a recap of some of our top stories. We told you that central bank orders banks to sell excess dollars as BDC operators close businesses in Abuja. Many fear dead in Imo tanker explosion. Moving on to more stories. The People's Democratic Party remains a formidable opposition in Nigeria, despite the seeming instability and lack of cohesion within its ranks, according to Adamawa State Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri. The governor, whose re-election victory was affirmed by the Supreme Court, restated the commitment of his administration to actualizing the dreams and aspirations of the people through good and transparent governance.
In an exclusive interview on Trust TV after successfully winning the final battle for his re-election as governor of Adamawa State at the Supreme Court, Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri says the verdict has solidified his government's commitment to implementing people-oriented policies for sustainable growth and development.
I came prepared with my programs, which have been availing them to the good people of my state, ensuring that we bring the kind of development, both capital and human, that will take my people and the state to a greater height. So I have never been distracted to think one day that I am not the governor.
Speaking on the political developments in the PDP, Fintiri says despite what many think of the seeming disarray in the party, the PDP remains a functional and formidable opposition to the APC government.
If you are talking about playing a viral opposition, it is still early. This government needs to be given time. We are in a multiple crisis in this country. So we should not be boxing or putting every government into a corner that it cannot work for the interest of for the national interest. We should also be having at the back of our mind that there's time to play politics and there's time to play governance.
While speaking on the economic challenges facing Adamawa State, the governor highlighted the changing landscape and fortunes of the state due to an effective turnaround in policy and governance.
We are not one of the richest, but in terms of development, we are catching up with the developed states in the country. And I want to ensure by end of 8 years, if we are not one of the 2 best, we should be ranked among the 5 best states in the country in terms of turnaround development in our state. And we have also ensured that we made Adama as one of the hubs of cattle in the country.
The full 30 minutes interview with Manir Ali will air on February 5th at 7:30 p.m. on Trust TV. Abdullahi Ahmed, Trust TV News.
We move on now to agriculture, where small-scale women farmers in Nigeria have made a case for more investment and implementation of the national gender policy in agriculture across national and sub-national levels in order to boost agricultural production, accelerate economic growth and development, eradicate poverty, and empower the vulnerable members of the society. This, according to them, will also ensure food security as the nation battles with the economic crisis and rising cost of living. Nigeria's agricultural sector, according to experts, contributes significantly to the country's gross domestic product. However, it has seen a sharp decline in output with stunted growth due to low productivity. On the flip side, it's a challenge of participation of women farmers in rural and urban centers, which has over time affected households and businesses. But the Agriculture and Food Security Ministry has assured Nigerians of the federal government's readiness to continue investing in food security and climate change, especially towards improving gender participation.
Enhancing agricultural products, storage and transportation infrastructure, activation of river basins and 500,000 hectares of land for ongoing agriculture. We also enhance the central bank's involvement in financing the agricultural value chain and the use of concessionary funds or capital in the agricultural industry.
Women farmers and stakeholders in the agri sector want greater synergy and enforcement of justice and equity in the distribution chain of all necessary commodities, as well as policy implementation across gender lines.
The smallholder woman farmer doesn't have enough to produce as much as the people will need. Why then are we still having problem with poverty? Why are we still having problem with food insecurity? It is because the women farmer, the smallholder women farmers, or the smallholder farmer is not being involved as fully as they should.
There's a divide between government processes and the women at the grassroots levels. Having supported them to integrate gender into the agricultural policy, we are trying to bridge that gap by bringing women to the table to let government know what their problems are, as well as government tell them what they have in stock for the women.
If you check the data and indices available, you see that with the fuel subsidy removal, with high inflation, food price crisis, that more Nigerians are struggling, people are getting poorer, and we are pushing to make sure that interventions are put in place immediately to also alleviate this situation.
Statistics show that worldwide, 75% of poor people live in rural areas and are mostly involved in farming, with 3 out of 4. Statistics show that worldwide, 75% of poor people live in rural areas and are mostly involved in farming, with 3 out of 4 of every poor person in developing countries among this population having a high dependence on agriculture for their livelihoods. This makes it imperative to empower women, who make up majority of the number, in order to ensure. And now to the international scene. India's Financial Crimes Agency has arrested a top opposition leader hours after he resigned from the position of the Chief Minister of Jharkhand State. Hemant Soren of the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha party has been accused of corruption. He denies the allegations. He was arrested by the Enforcement Directorate on Wednesday evening after 7 hours of questioning. His party has named Transport Minister Champai Soren as the next Chief Minister of the Eastern State. Soren has challenged his arrest in India's Supreme Court, calling it politically motivated. The matter will be heard on Friday. He is the latest in a long list of opposition leaders who are facing high-profile investigations led by India's central agencies. And that brings us to the end of the news update at this hour. But remember, you can always follow us across all of our social media platforms and also join our YouTube live stream for more news, programs, and documentary. I'm Aisha Salihu. Thank you so much for your time. Join us again.